Hello and welcome to another scrapbooking process video. I'm Tracy, also known as MercyTiara, and I make scrapbooking process videos and more here on my channel. Today I am working on a really fun layout that I created with the Nostalgia Kit from MercyTiara Kits. And this one uses a photo collage as the main part of the layout. So I started with all of these photos. These are various photos from a day that I spent with my sister-in-law in New York. And I wanted to capture all of these photos. They're all printed fairly small because they were potentially going to be in my project life for that month. This was from November of 2023. And these ones didn't make the cut. So I did scrapbook lots of different memories, but just these ones didn't make it. So I am going to be putting them all on a page, even though they're all from the same day, but they're from different things that we did that day. So I thought it would be a fun little adventure in New York kind of a layout. My first thought was that I would use the cut file. I already cut some of the cut file pieces, and that one that says memories, I cut that up in black, and I thought that that might be a really great title for this one. So I took that out to start and I put it off to the side, but I'm going to change my mind when I find a really great title to use, and there's going to be a problem with that, but I'm going to solve it. So come along with me and you will get to see the whole adventure. So I had to find my photo of how I had them laid out because I couldn't remember. I knew that they were mostly in a square-ish shape, but I couldn't remember how they were. So I will refer to my phone quite a bit as I build this, and I'm going to accidentally veer off of it. These photos do have a small white border around some of them because of the way that I printed them. Some of them have a bigger border than others. So just to make them all even to begin with, I am just going to take a few minutes to trim those down so that all of the little white borders are gone. And through the magic of editing, that is all done, and now they're all in their pristine condition without any white borders of any size on any of them. Now that means that I can use this white cardstock to create my big square of multiple photos, starting down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And then I'm putting another, these are all cut to the exact same size and printed to the exact same size, but some of them are vertical and some of them are horizontal, which is going to leave some gaps in my square. I plan to fill those gaps in with pieces of patterned paper and potentially embellishments and whatnot. So I am doing my best here. I am off track right away. This is not as the photo showed it, and I can't figure out what is wrong. And as I pull these off, I am actually tearing the paper behind. So I'm thinking, oh, I guess I'm going to have to change my layout somehow because those need to stay in place. And I'm ultimately going to decide to... Now, what I could have done here is taken them all off and turned the paper around and used the back side of it, which wasn't torn. But I just decided, you know what, it's white paper. I think most of these torn edges are going to be covered. Most of them are covered, but there is a little bit that, as I look down at the layout right now, you can see, if you know where it's at and you know where to look, you can see a little bit of white torn paper below my photos. But I think that it's okay. There's a lot that's going to end up on this page. This page is going to be deliciously embellished. So there's so much to look at. You're not going to notice a little tiny bit of torn cardstock. That's my guess. And if you notice it, you'll notice it and know that I'm not perfect. And so the secret is out. We've got this square coming together pretty well now at this point, now that I fixed my mistake. And I am using my T ruler just to help me a little bit. I'm trying to make the spaces between the photos pretty even where they're going to be beside each other. And of course, there's these big gaps, which are okay. I will go back and fill those in. So here is my square photo collage that will be the basis of my whole page. And my thought is that my title will go right in the center where there is no photo. And I need to think of what kind of pattern paper I'm going to put behind there. I'm picking this one. This came in the nostalgia kit, and I really love this paper. It's from Simple Stories from their Memories collection, and it is a little bit warmer than some of the other papers in the collection. I'm just going to measure how big my gaps are, and that's tricky for me because I grew up using centimeters and still usually use centimeters as my default measurement. So I always struggle with those sixteenths and eighths, and I get the quarters; those are fine. But I always struggle with is which measurement am I dealing with here? So I always err on the side of cutting it a little bit bigger than it needs to be. I can always trim it down a little bit. So I finally got it the right width, and now I will get it the right height, or vice versa. Yeah, there we go. And that fits just perfectly in that little gap. And all I have to do is repeat that 3 more times. So I start with measuring, and this one is going to cover most of the torn part there that's showing. There, as I said, there will still be a tiny bit of it showing below, but there we go. This one was already cut to width because of the other, like the other piece is the same width. So that worked out well. And now I'm just going to double check the width of this one. I think it's, yeah, I'm trimming it down a little bit so that both of these, so that basically I'm measuring once and I can cut 2 pieces out of this same height. And I measured them both, and then I realized I'm not going to remember the numbers, so I'm just going to measure twice. Measure twice, cut twice. That's my rule. I think they say measure twice, cut once. I will just go back and add some adhesive to all of these little pieces so that now my whole frame is made with a combination of photos and little bits of pattern paper. Now, I was mentioning that pattern paper. The reason I picked it is look at how the green picks up on the greens in the trees in Central Park, and the blues pick up on the blues in the buildings in the background. There's also blue in the water of the lake, and there's gold in the Mario statue that's in the store. And like just those blues and golds and greens are just really, really pretty and show up all over in the photos. So even though these photos were taken at all different places, some of them are fairly colorful, they all have a little bit of blue or green or gold in them. Most of them do. So now I have this center, which is where my title will be, and I have to think about what am I going to do with this title? Which letter stickers am I going to use? I don't think I'll use the letter stickers that come in the nostalgia kit because they just don't work for this particular page, and that's okay. Then I'm looking at these Vicky Bouton stickers. I'm looking at them mostly for embellishment reasons, and this there really stood out at me, and I thought there's another embellishment on that same sticker set that says this and that. No, this here, it says this here. And right there, see, it says this here. If I cut this off, then I have here, and I can title this here and there. Now, the only problem is that although there was an ampersand on this sticker set, I already used it. So that poses a problem, but I have a solution. This is something, if you've watched me for a long time, you probably know what the solution is, right? I am going to, oops, I'm so sorry it's out of frame, but what I did was maybe you will see it. I'm going to cut out the empty frame around the ampersand sticker. So the sticker itself is missing, but the leftovers on the sticker paper, I can use as a template, and I can trace around. I'm using my pencil because you can see pencil on black cardstock. It shows up pretty easily. And I have to figure out, how does this go again? I couldn't remember. This one is easy because it lines up with the line that goes through the center of the ampersand. But this one, I couldn't remember. Was it tilted or was it straight up and down? I don't know. I just did my best. I'm actually going to hang on to that because, hey, I have myself an ampersand stencil now. And it's a great size. And I'm always looking for ampersands. So now I can just keep that and use it as many times as until it deteriorates, till it's not sticky anymore or won't work or whatever. I'm using my Cutter Bee precision scissors to cut this out. It really is easier to use these tiny precision scissors when you're cutting out something so delicate. And even using my precision scissors, at one point, I did almost cut a part off. I almost cut the leg off of the ampersand, but I didn't. I cut it, but not all the way through, so it's still hanging by a little piece, which is good. And I have those center pieces, and you know what? Ampersands look fine without the center pieces cut out. Like, you can still recognize that shape as an ampersand, but I'm going to cut them out. I just took a piece of foam. I keep foam. Whenever you get foam in a package like that, you can hang on to it and use it for punching things, right? For poking holes. So I just poked a couple of holes in each of the little cutaway parts that I need to cut away, using my eraser there, my white eraser, to take off those pencil marks. And Stephanie was going to make herself some lunch, so we had to talk about what truffles were. They're cheese waffles. Do you guys know about this? I had never heard of that. So here and there, it looks good like that, but I thought it looked even cuter, even though it's kind of backward. You know that it's here and there. It's such a common title that I figured I had some design liberties. I took some design liberties here. I'm just smoothing out a couple of areas where I didn't cut it all that well, but it looks pretty good, eh? This title looks so much fun. Wait till you see it on the page. I'm just going to place it down here in a second, and look at it. There just fits so perfectly. It does overlap both of the photos on the right and on the left, but that's okay. I'm able to make sure that Jen's face is showing, which is the most important part. The rest of it, the letter E just covers up some of the store decorations a little bit, but that's okay. We're using this is important to use a slick surface writer whenever you're outlining on a shiny sticker, because those shiny stickers are not porous, and you just want to make sure that you're using a slick surface writer so that it doesn't all smear off and make a big mess. So what I'm using is my Tombow Mono Twin marker, which is one of my favorite non-porous markers. I really love how dark of a line you can get with it, although I'm using the finer point, so it's a little bit less dark because it's a thinner line. I'm going to use it also on the word here, and I love how these letters look like they're cut out of pieces of construction paper. They're so pretty. I just love them. They're perfect coloring and perfect everything. They're just awesome. I wish that there was a font that was like that, like a foam letter sticker that was like those. And yeah, I would be very happy. Maybe there is one. I know that Vicki Boutin's Discover and Create collection did have a thicker, but I believe it was black and white, if I'm not mistaken. So I am going to pop these up. I'm using a different brand of Pop Dots here. These are from Stampin' Up. I love these, and I have a whole bunch of them in my stash, so I got to make sure I use them up. So I am just going to make sure that all of the little legs on my letters have good support underneath of them so that they don't fall down when this is in a page protector. So from a design perspective, I really like the ampersand being in front of here. I think it also looks really cute on the other side of here, but what I really love is how it looks like it's got a hand sticking out, like almost like a hand that's serving, and then here is going to be sitting right on the palm of that hand on the ampersand, and that appeals to me. I like that a lot. Now, I am using, if you have these, great, and go ahead and use them, but you don't have to have black foam tabs, but I do, so I'm going to use them. I have these little black foam pieces, and it's nice to not have the white showing from the edge, but if you're putting them on carefully, you won't see the white on the edge anyways. You'll only see it when you hold the layout at a really strong angle, but if you've got them, you might as well use them, so that's what I'm doing. These Stampin' Up! Foam pieces come in 2 different sizes. They only come in one height, and I really like the height of them. I like it as it's a really nice middle of the line height, and then you can double it up if you want more height. But it does come in two sizes. So I'm using the smaller ones here on the word here, on the word here. Oh, that title just makes me very, very happy. I'm going to add some glue to the bottom part of the ampersand so that basically the ampersand and there become one. And I can now remove the foam pieces from both of those. I'm doing a little thing that YouTubers do, which is using a piercing tool to help me peel back my foam pieces, and I'm feeling like a real YouTuber when I do it. But I gotta admit, it's a pain to do it that way versus using my own real fingernails. So I switched and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna use my fingernails. So there we go. We've got the word there down at the bottom. And now we just have to place the word here so that it's sitting on the hand of the ampersand. Aww. Yeah, just demonstrating. I like that. And I could have put that whole thing on a piece of, I could have filled that square in the center with a piece of pattern paper. I would have used something fairly soft and something that reads as a neutral, but I don't use actual white space in that. It's like white, not a color and not pattern paper. I don't use white space very often. So I thought I'm just going to let this one breathe. And, as I look at it, that space in front of the top of the ampersand, that could use maybe like a little arrow that's pointing towards it or something, or a star or something in that little space would look okay too. But I didn't do that. And I think it looks fine without it as well. I'm doing a switcheroo here because I felt like that cardstock background that I've been designing on the whole time was just feeling a little bit drab. It's a warm, it's almost like a dirty bluey green, and I just wanted something a little bit brighter. So the back side of that floral Vicky Bouton paper, as much as I hate to to not use the floral paper on the back side, this beautiful color makes the perfect background for this page. So I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice that beautiful flower. Now I could cut out the center that's covered by the square, but like by my photo collage and get rescue a little bit of that pattern paper, but I didn't end up doing that. I didn't get the pattern paper add-on this time. It's in fairly short supply, so I wanted to make sure that we had enough for customers, so that's why I don't have it, but I highly recommend getting the extra pattern paper add-on because it keeps you from having dilemmas like this. Like, it's just so much better to just freely scrap and not have to worry about, oh, am I going, like, which side do I want to use? So anyhow, but sometimes it's nice to force yourself to make those decisions. And here I am making a tough call. But I really do like how this page looks with that. It's like a tiny polka dot, but it's got a brighter turquoisey, greeny, bluey color behind it. I'm realizing that some of those flowers that I love so much from the pattern paper, from the back side of the paper I'm using, are actually in the die cut set. So I will get to use some of those flowers after all, which is good. I noticed these squirrels. There are these very large squirrels in this die cut set that I have no idea how I would ever use them, but I thought I'm going to pull them out because there are photos of Central Park here. It's just that the squirrels are way bigger than any of the photos on this page. So they look enormous anyways, but they look especially enormous on this page with its tiny, tiny little photos, and the squirrels are way bigger than the people, which is kind of funny. So I'm looking through the Vicky Bouton paper clips. These are die cut paper clips. Some of them are acetate and some of them are cardstock. And I have a few cut apart labels there. The kits come with cut apart labels now that are a digital download for anybody who buys a main kit. And so I have some of those labels on hand. I'm having a look at the stickers. But ultimately, what I really want to do is cut some of these feathers and place them, I'm thinking, here and on the other side, at least on one side, but I'm going to end up deciding to do it on both sides. I'm picking some feathers that pick up on some of the colors in the letters. Like, there's some orange in the letters that isn't anywhere else on the page, so I picked the orange feather for that reason. And I also wanted some neutral feathers as well, just because, really bright colored feathers can be a lot. So I'm picking a bright and two more neutral kind of colors. One of them is a green and one of them is pink with little orange bits on it, but they read, as you can see from the distance, they read fairly neutral. This little die cut says, wherever you are, be all there. That's a good approach when you're traveling. And then this one says beautiful and awesome, or that one says awesome. And then there's another one that says beautiful. So those are tags from Simple Stories die cuts that came in the kit. So I've got two sets of die cuts that came in the kit. We've got the Vicki Boutin's Discover and Create, and plus we have True Colors from Simple Stories. Plus I also have those acetate paper clips from Vicki Boutin as well that came, I think those came in the main kit. Some of that stuff might be from the embellishment kit though. There's a little die cut piece that says the world around me that I thought was really relevant, and I'm going to use a large label on that piece of pattern paper. I'm going to mostly cover the pattern paper, and that label is cut off already, so it's not quite big enough to cover all of the pattern paper that I want to cover there. And I did print twice now. It's one digital file. It's one sheet of labels. You might notice that the two that I have are different. That's because I just have an earlier iteration of the design before I finalized it. I cut it off for myself and I thought, well, I might as well use that. The great thing about digital downloads, of course, is that you can print and cut up as many sheets of those labels as you'd like. So if one sheet isn't enough, just print up another sheet and that'll do you probably for the whole month, I would imagine. But there will be a set of those with every kit. So if you subscribe to the kits, by the end of the year, you will have a wide assortment of digital labels, label files that you can use for all sorts of different reasons. You'll have them in lots of different color schemes over the course of the year, so that'll be nice. I'm going to add this little banner. It's purple and there's not much else purple on the page, but I do really like it, so I'm putting it on there anyways. And I'm not even going to bother myself with balancing it out. There is some purple in my jacket that shows up in a few places, and it's okay. It doesn't, and not everything has to be perfectly balanced. So I'll put this die cut piece that says, wherever you are, be all there. I'm going to put that above the label, and then the label will hold my journaling. My journaling, which I'm writing with a Sakura Pigma fine liner. It says, spent some quality time with Jen in the city. So nice to get to know her even better. And then I'm also going to underline it just to make it feel at home on the label. I like underlining my journaling almost all the time these days. Didn't always do that, but I like it these days. I will add some foam adhesive, some pop dots on the bottom of that, and just add that to that little gap where there's just a little bit too much pattern paper showing there. And Brittany finished a layout, which was nice. I was live streaming at the same time that I did this process video. It was an impromptu, unplanned thing where a lot of us were snowed in. Some of the people who purchase our kits are actually locals who were snowed in along with me, and then other people just kind of scrapped along with us even though they weren't snowed in. And so we had a nice little impromptu crop over the weekend with the Facebook group. It was really fun. That's a benefit to joining our Facebook group. And you don't have to buy a kit, although most of what we talk about over there is the MercyTiara kits, but you just have to be a fan of the kits, even if you've only bought one or haven't bought one yet but are thinking about it. You're welcome. You're welcome to join us over there, and we'd love to hear from you and get to know you and, chat. It's a fun little group. So as you can see, at first, when I cut those feathers, I roughly cut them just to get a sense of their size and scale and how they look on the page. But now that I know that I want them on the page, I'm going to fussy cut them in more detail. This leaves a very tiny blue border around the edges of these feathers because that was just the background on the paper. And I really like how that looks. It gives the feathers a little bit of definition from the background and from one another. So now that all three of those feathers are cut, and I didn't want two and two, and I thought that three and three would be way too many, so I just wanted just the two on one side and one on the other. It gives it a little bit less of a symmetrical look. And I'm going to add some slits in the feathers because I really like the texture and dimension that that gives. I'm pulling them up on the edges. And at this point, and in this video, I do not add foam adhesive under the edges of those feathers, but that would be a great idea. And I probably will do that before I pop this page into a page protector. It just helps keep that dimension so that it doesn't get folded down when it's under the pressure of all the other pages in the book. I'm just going to cut the little handle off of that because I'm not going to really use it as a paper clip, that particular butterfly. I'm putting two of those acetate butterflies on this page because there are two people are the subjects of the page. So I like my little critters to reflect what's in the page. So I thought that that worked well. I just want to make sure that they're not in exactly the same places, right? So I do have one of those little paper clips stuck to the top, and I just made sure that my adhesive went right over it just to hold it in place so I don't even have to glue that down. So now I'm just placing that on the page, and you know what? It would have been good to place it just slightly off to the right because there's more embellishments here on the left than there are on the right. And it would have been smart for me to just push it over a tiny little bit so that I have a similar amount of edge, like outside edge on each of these sides. But I wasn't thinking about that when I did it, so it's not done that way. And that's all right. I am going to experiment. Oops, we're going to cut off the clip of that one too, I guess. And I'm going to experiment a little bit with the placement of these butterflies. I just want them, I don't know, I just want them to look like they're natural and kind of, I don't want them to be facing the same direction necessarily. I don't want it to look too mirrored of one another. So I will move one of them because they're too similar right now. I'm tucking a little flower underneath here, and the purpose of this flower is to actually just give me a bit of an anchor for this piece. This is the world around me embellishment that I picked out a while ago, and that just gives it a home to live in, a little something something there. And I'm going to put these two ticket shaped things, one says awesome and one says beautiful, at the bases of my feathers, tucking that butterfly in at the top of those feathers, and then we'll tuck this one in at the bottom of this one, and they're both facing outwards. And that provides some nice balance on this page. It emphasizes the fact that the embellishment cluster over on the left is definitely lower than the embellishment cluster on the right, even though they're not that different from one another. I want to accentuate the differences. And because your eyes go to those butterflies, because they're really the most bold thing other than the ampersand on the page. So with one of them being higher and one of them being lower, it really does give that diagonal feel or just that lack of symmetry, which I'm looking for. This little sticker says, I kind of like you, and I thought it was a cute little understatement. I like that. And then I'm putting you by Jen, and I'm putting me by me. And then this little one says, a perfect day. I'm going to put another flower here to anchor that paper clip that's up there. And I felt like the page needed just a tiny bit more black. So there is this wonky scalloped border in the sticker set that I've already used a little bit of it, but I'm going to use even more of it here. I'm going to put some up there and I'm going to put some right here. That leaves me a tiny little bit left over to use someplace else, but it won't make it onto this page. But that just gives me just a little bit more balance and places that black nicely around the page instead of all concentrated with the ampersand. Another little sticker says, this is so freaking special. I'm just looking for anything else that might accentuate the story and support the story. It says documenting the happenings up there. And now I'm just going to sprinkle some of these confetti pieces in 3 places. So we have actually 4 embellishment clusters here, but 2 of them are so close that if I put sprinkles between them, it becomes like 3. So we've got 3 corners on this page, and using a visual triangle is a design element that really helps a page look pulled together. And then once you have those 3 embellishment corners, you can then use repetition in your corners to uh, also make your page look pulled together. So I am doing what I did with my last layout, which is pouring a little bit of my Heidi Swap black into a little palette, and with a palette that has little wells in it. And this gives me more paint on my fan brush, which gives me much bigger splatter than what I'm actually used to. This is actually more splatter than what I intended to put on this page, but I think that it's a good example of how when you're working with splatter, one of the wonderful things about mixed media, and I'm also adding some gold splatter as well, but one of the wonderful things about mixed media is that you give up control and you just say, okay, we're going with black splatter, and if the universe decides that we're having big splatter, then we're having big splatter. And if there's small splatter, then we're having small splatter, and we'll just go with it, right? One alternative to this is to add your splatter at the beginning of your page and then design around it. And then, I've done that before, and that can be a way to make your splatter really look like it belongs in the right places on your page, because, you can cover up anything that is too much. Um, and that tends to work really well. Now, it felt like this splatter was way too concentrated in these 3 places. So I did add a little bit more gold up there at the top, but I'm going to add more even more later. But I guess I'm going to do my confetti mix first. So I start by just naturally sprinkling some pieces on my 3 places where I put my splatter. And I find that combining splatter and confetti pieces gives a much more natural look than either one of them alone. So I really like this quite a bit. I take a few minutes just to turn over any confetti that landed upside down. And these are just little sequin pieces that don't have holes in them. A sequin mix comes in every MercyTiara kit, or most of them anyways. And so I'm just using I cut out some of the footage there, but I did use that designer dries clear glue, art glitter designer dries clear glue. I always get the name of that mixed up, but I'm using that with my pickup stick to put all of those confetti pieces down. And even though you only saw me do that for one of those little clusters, I actually did it for all 3. So they're all glued right now. And I've decided to add some doodly outlines to the outside edges of this. So I'm going to double outline. It gives it a bit more of a doodly look and also heavier lines in places. And I like that look. It just kind of finishes it off. I'm also adding some black dots every here and there just to fill out the confetti. And I actually want there to be more stray pieces everywhere on this page, but I don't necessarily want to take out my ink and do that all over again. So I've got a black pen, and I'm looking at that and just thinking it's too concentrated. Like, I like the splotches in each of those corners, but there's just not enough differences. So I added some circles, and I added some like little donut hole circles, and I also added some pluses with that marker. And if I haven't already, then at some point I do grab a gold gel pen. I don't think I have yet. So there's more coming. Yes, I see it ahead on the timeline here. So after I show you the close-ups, you will see me add just a little bit more, and then we'll go into the photos. But I want you to see what I add here, because it just looks too clean in between my clusters. It's just too crisp and clean, and there's too much of a contrast between the places and the splatter. So I'm just taking my regular Sharpie pen. It's black, and I'm just adding dots so that it looks like some of that splatter landed in some of those wide open spaces, because if I was really flicking it from afar, it would have. So that makes it look just a little bit more natural. And then I just went into my stash and grabbed a gold gel pen. This is just a Sakura Jelly Roll gold pen. I think it's like the ball sign one for doing posters or something. And I'm just adding pluses and little gold dots as well, every here and there. And I'm focusing on adding this in the wide open spaces that don't have any glitter, or any splatter. So there you go. Before I share the photos, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. These folks help make this channel happen, so big thanks to all of them. And here is the resulting layout. As you can see, the splatter in the open spaces does just add a little something to it, just to make it feel a little bit more pulled together and less, I don't know, it just was too much of a triangle before with those splattery pieces. But I really love this layout. It's really fun to look at it because there's lots of little layers and details on this page. So it's super fun to look at. The photos are really fun as well. And this was one of the more rewarding pages that I made this month. So thanks so much for coming along for the process video for this one. Here are some of the places where you can find me on social media and other places. So check out my pages. Feel free to share this video with a friend if you liked it, and let me know by liking it and leaving me a comment. I love to hear from you. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.